Jai Hind viewers, I am Sudhakar Dwivedi, Assistant Professor, Information Technology Department. Today, we are again going to discuss about a very important concept of the web technology. Currently, we are discussing about the XML, and in this series, we are going to discuss how we can just validate the XML documents. So, in the previous lectures, we have just discussed what is the XML documents, how we can just create an XML documents, and how many types of the XML documents actually. So we have discussed there may be two types of the XML documents. One is well formed and another one is valid. But actually for the application development, we requires the well formed and the validated XML documents. So I have said the well formed XML document is one which is just conforms to the XML syntax rules. And the validated XML document is one which is just conforms to the DTD document type definition and the particular XML schema. So what is XML DTD? What is XML schemas? How we can create the document type definition? How we can write an XML schemas? All these things we will discuss in today's session. So we will just discuss about the XML DTD. We will discuss the types of these DTDs like the internal DTD and external DTD. What is the proper syntax of writing these internal and external DTDs? Then what is XML schemas? Why we will use the XML schema? Then what is the difference between the XML schema and these DTD? And at the last, we will just have one example to write a simple XML schema. And we just show what are the validation, how we can just validate these types of the XML schema. So what is the XML DTD? So as we can see here, the DTD means document type definition. So as I have said, the XML documents may be a well-formed documents. The XML document is the well-formed XML documents when it is just conform to the syntax rules. And when we say this XML document is valid or not valid. So this XML document is valid one when it is just conformed to some DTD. What is the purpose of this DTD? Suppose there is two applications and these two applications just want to share some information. So how we can just ensure that the information that we are sharing have some correct representation of the data. So to just ensure that this XML document that we are sharing between the applications, it just follow a correct and a perfect structure of the data that we are going to share. We just need to have some mechanisms to assure that we are just sharing the data or just we are just receiving the data is the correct one. So just we need to validate our XML documents. So how we can validate? We can validate these XML documents if it is follow a particular DTD, that means it is conformed to the document type definition that we have represented, or it just follows some XML schema definition or XSD, right? So to validate this XML document, we need DTD or XSD. So we have XML document and we have a DTD. If it just conform to this DTD, that means XML with the XML document, the DTD is also known. If it just conform to this DTD, it can be assured that this XML file is the validated file. It is a valid file, or if it is not conforming this DTD, it is the invalid file. In the subsequent way, we have XML schema definition. This is just the incremental version of the DTD. If it just conform to the XSD, it is also a valid document. So the DTD is a document type definition that contains a set of rules that controls the structure and elements of the XML file. Structure and elements of XML file. So when any XML file refers DTD file, it validates against those rules. That means what I have said, the DTD contains a set of rules that controls the structure and elements of XML file. So what XML file should contains, it should be controlled by the XML DTD. And if the XML file refers a DTD file, that means it validates against those rules. So DTD has a validated elements and attributes that are defined inside the DTD documents. It serves as a formal specification that outline the elements. What way the elements should be presented in the XML documents. So it serves as a formal specification that outline the elements, attributes, what should be the relationship between those elements within the XML documents. They also specify what element can appear in the XML document, in what order we should write these elements, what attributes the elements can have, what the data types those attributes can contain. So all these specifications we can outline in the DTD. And in this way the XML document is created and it is conformed to all these rules that is specified in DTD, then only the XML document can be said it's the valid one. If it is not conforming what is just outlined in the XML DTD, it is an invalid document. So to assure that XML document is valid or invalid, we should just confirm the XML document with the provided DTD. So the XML document with the correct syntax, I have said it is the well formed. But the XML document which is just following the DTD is both well formed and valid. So a valid XML document is a well formed XML document and it is also conformed to the DTD. We can just say the document type definition is just a basic building block of the XML. And the purpose of the DTD is to define the structure of an XML document. It is define the structure with a list of the legal building blocks. What should the document contain? What should be the element that should appear in the XML document? What should be the attributes that that particular element should have? What should be the data types of that element contains? So all these things we can outline using this DTD. And our XML documents, we can have the two types of the DTD. One is internal DTD that we can write inside the XML documents, and another one is the external DTD that we can write this separately and just we can link later on. So the basic syntax of writing the XML DTD is the conical bracket and then doc type, and then after doc type there is an element and then DTD identifier, and this square brackets the declaration part, and then we have complete this declaration part. So the DTD starts with the doc type delimiter. So this is the doc type delimiter. Here we start the DTD. An element just tells the parser to pass the document from the specified root element. So here the element means the root element. Here we specify the root element and it just indicates the parser to parse this document from the root element. DTD identifier for this document, which may be the path to the file on the system or URL to a file on the internet. That means if the DTD is pointing to some external path, it is called the external subset. And this square bracket encloses optional list of all entire declaration. So internal DTD. So a document type definition, as I have said, it is referred to as internal document type definition. It just outline the way the XML file should create it. So our DTD is referred to as internal DTD if the elements are declared, all the elements are declared within the XML files. To refer it is an internal DTD, standalone attribute that I have mentioned in your previous class. The standalone attribute in XML declaration must be set to yes. This means the declaration works independent of the external source. So the syntax of this, we have used this doc type, then we should write the root element and then this square bracket, the element declaration. This is an example of the internal DTD. So this is our XML document. We can see here the root element, here the root element is note, and here is a to, from, heading and body element inside the note element. So how we can create a internal DTD? So as for the syntax, what we should use? First we should use the doc type and then root element. So what I have written? The doc type and the root element is the note. I have written the note. And then in the square bracket and then in the square bracket, we should use the element declarations. To declare an element, we should just use this syntax, the conical bracket, exclamation mark, then element, and here is the element name. So we just use this for element declaration. We have used element and then here element name. So the first element in our document is the note element. So the first element is the note element, and then the description. Then description is the to, from, heading and body. All these are just inside these note element. So this is the complex element, and inside this element there is a 4 types of the element. The second element, again we have described the second element, that is the to, and this is the type of the C data. That means the character data that is not parsed by the parser. So here we'll be describing different types of the data sets that will be discussed later on. This is the C data, that means is the character data that is not parsed by the parser. Again another is from, it is also the C data, and there is heading, it's also the C data, and another element is body, it's also a C data. So it's a internal DTD. So what I have represented, what is the element, what this element should contain, what type of the data it contains. All these things I have described in this document. So whenever we are creating some documents, some XML document based on this DTD, it is according to this DTD. That means if we change the sequence, what I have provided here, it will be our invalid DTD. So the DTD elements, what is the DTD elements? So the XML elements can be defined as a building blocks of an XML documents. XML elements can be defined as a building blocks of any XML documents. So elements can behave as a container to hold the text, elements, attributes, media, object or mixed of all. So a DTD element is declared with the element declaration, as I have said. So when an XML file is validated by DTD, so parser initially checks for the root element and then the child element are validated. So first of all, the parser initially check the root element, what the root element is, and then the child element is validated. So what is the way we can represent the element? So this way we can represent the element, right? So element, then element name, and then the content. Right? So the element declaration is used to indicate the parser that we are about to define an element. This element means we are just going to define an element. Element name is the just name of the element, and the content defines what content can go with this element. In this element, what type of the element. As we can see in this type of the XML document, here is the first is the root node, and it is the first element of this document. And in this document, the content is the different types of the element. And what are these elements? To, from, heading and body. So in this type, the content is another type of the element. So I have discussed the XML. So these are the DTD elements I have discussed. Next is the element content type. So the content type I have said it may be empty content, it may be element content, it may be mixed content, or it may be any content. So the content of the element declaration in DTD can be categorized as like this. So if there is no content inside the element, so the element, and then we can write like this, empty. And if there is some element content, then what we can write? The element, then element name, and whatever the element inside this, we can write like this. If there is some mixed content, that means here is a text also and some child element also. So what we can write here? Here is an element, then the type of element, and these are the just formatting of these elements. And if it contains any element, so what I have said, any. So these are the way we can just represent the content. So I have also used these types, PC data and C data. So PC data means the data that should be passed by the parser. PC data stands for the parsed character data, is the text data that is parsed by the parser. Tags inside the PC data will be treated as the markup, and entities will be expanded, that means it will be finally passed by the parser. And if it is not passed by the parser, it is the C data. So how we can write the external DTD? So internal DTD is written inside the documents, and external DTD is written outside the XML file, and they are just linked to the XML documents, and they are accessed by specifying the system attributes, which may be either the legal DTD file or a valid URL. To refer it is an external DTD, again the standalone attribute should be set as no. This means the declaration includes information from the external source. So what is the syntax? So again, here is the doc type, root element, then we need to use the system attribute, and then in the double quotation we need to mention the file name. That may be a valid.dtd file. See here. So the same, this XML document here. So we are representing the employee information. So employee is the root element here, and here is a 3 element inside the employee element, the first, last, and email. And we have created an external DTD for this. To create the external DTD, just we need to declare all the elements. So the first element we should declare the element, then element name, and then the content. So the first element is the root element, and inside this element there is a 3 element. So I have mentioned first name, last name, and email. The second element is the first name, the third element is the last name, and this one is the email. All are the PC data, that means parsed character data. And then how we can include this external file, employee.dtd. So for including this file, we will use the system attribute in our XML file. So here again, this is same. This is the root element I have specified, and then I have used the system attribute. And then in the double quotation, I have provided this file name, employee.dtd. So in this way, we can create the external DTD, external document type definition. So here, what we are specifying, here we are specifying the types of the elements, the number of the elements, and what should inside the one element we should contains. So what is XML schemas? An XML schema also describes the structure of an XML document, just like the DTD. That means it is also just validate the XML document. But what is the difference between the XML DTD and XML schema? So XML document validated against an XML schema also. That means it can also be validated against the XML schema. And it is also commonly known as XML schema definition. Like the document type definition, it's a XML schema definition. That is also used to describe and validate the structure and the content of XML data. XML schema also defines the elements, attributes, and data types also. it handles the namespaces concepts. It is just similar to the database schema that describes the data in the database. It is just an alternative to the DTD. So why we are using the XML schema when we have a DTD also? So XML schema definitions differ in some case than the DTD that we will discuss. But why we are actually using the XML schema? XML schema can be used to provide a list of elements and attributes in the vocabulary. To associate data types, we can also associate the data types in the XML schema, like the integer, string, etc. with the values also found in the documents. To constrain where the elements and attributes can appear. That means we can just fix the sequence of the XML element, and what can appear inside those elements we can also fix. Such as we are saying the chapter title occurs inside the chapter, and that chapter must consist of a chapter title followed by the one or more paragraph of the text. That means we can just ensure the sequence of the XML document, what element should contain inside another element, what should be the data type of each type of the element. We can all write in the using the XML schema. To provide the documentation that is both human readable and machine processable, if we want such type of the documents, we can use the XML schema definition. So the XML schema definition and DTD, both are we are using for validating the XML document. But what is the difference between the XML schema that we are going to use to the document type definition? So the XML schema can be just considered as the successor, or it is more powerful and richer than the XML DTD. So XML DTD just provides the structure, grammar of the XML, but XML schema also provides some more constraints on the data, like the data type and the sequence. DTD is not object-oriented, but XML schema is the object-oriented approach. It follows the object-oriented approach. DTD is not a namespace aware. That means if we have two elements with the same name, there is no mechanism to handle this. But in the XML schema, we can handle the XML documents if there is a conflict in the element's name by using the namespace. If we talk about the data type, so not strongly typed, DTD is not focusing on the type, or it is not a strongly typed, but XML schema we can force the data type. That means it is the strongly typed. So the DTD is limited to some built-in data types. That is means it is not strongly typed. But in the XML schema, we can have a lot of built-in and derived data types. Inline definitions is allowed in the DTD, but it is not allowed in the case of the XML schema. How we can write an XML schema for a document? So we are considering the same document. How we can write these XML schema? So the first line, it is the first declaration. Then the root element is the XS schema. The root element is XS and then SCHEMA. This is the root element. This is the first attribute, XMLNS colon XS. That means XML namespace, and it is the URL where the namespace resolution is provided. So XMLNS XS attribute have a URL for the namespace resolution. Then we need to just explain about these elements. So to explain the elements, or to just represent the XML element, we just use the XS colon element tag. So XS element, and we have provided name attribute here. So the first document that we are using, suppose I am just following this XML document that have the employee first name, last name and email. So just see it, how we can create the XML schema document. So the first element we are representing as an access element, and the first element name we are just providing by the name attribute is the employee. But inside this employee element, as we have seen, there are three elements. That means this element, suppose this is a tag, and inside this tag there is more than one tag, so it can be considered as the complex types, because this tag may have the data of the different types and it has some sequence. So first I have just describe its name, then its type. So by to represent the type, the access complex type, I have used the type, the access, and then the type is the complex type. And then sequence. What is the sequence? So the access sequence. And the sequence, the first element is the first name, the second element is the last name, and third element is the email. So again, to represent the element, we have used the access element tag. And the name of the first element is the first name, name of the second element is the last name, and the name of the third element is the email. Again, I have using the type because it just contains the data. So we need to specify the type because it's have the simple type. All these elements are of the simple type. This employee elements of the complex type, that I have used the complex type and then to provide the sequence. But it is just of the simple type, so there is no need of the sequence. So type is access string. It is also a string type that I have mentioned using the access and then string, and it is also access string. So first of all, I have used the access schema, the root element. So access schema is closed. Then the first element, access element, it is closed. Then complex type is closed, and then sequence is closed here. So it is the way we can write then simple XML schema file. So what I have used in this document, we have used the access qualifier. I have used the access qualifier everywhere. So access qualifier is used to identify the schema elements and types. The document element of this schema is access schema. That means access schema is the root element. So here we can just identify the access schema is the root element. The root element is the access schema. And it takes the attribute XML NS XS, which has the value. So I have just mentioned it has an attribute XML NS XS that represents the XML namespace, and it has some attribute value. This declaration indicates that documents should follow the rules of XML schema, and these rules are just defined in W3C recommendation in year 2001. So I have used this value. That means the document should follow the rules of XML schema. It should follow the rules of XML schema, and the XML schema rules are defined by the W3C recommendation year 2001. Then I have used the access element that is used to define each and every individual element. In this example, I have used the complex type for the employee because it had the three child elements, the first name, last name, and email. And all these elements inside the these complex type elements are of the type string. So to represent the complex type, I have just used the access complex type, and to represent the sequence, I have used the access sequence. So this is the way we can write the XML schema definition. So this is an XML document, and suppose this is the XML file, and we need to create the XML schema definition. I have used another attribute XML NS XSI. So XML NS XSI means it indicates that XML document is an instance of XML schema. XML document is an instance of XML schema, and it has come from the namespace. It has come from which namespace? XML schema instance. So I have used another attribute here, that is XML NS XSI than the XML NS. We can also use XSI and no namespace schema location attribute that takes the name of the XSD file as a value, in which we will provide the XSD file, that is the employee.xsd. So whatever we have written, whatever XML schema file I have written, I have stored it using the employee.xsd, and it will be provided as a value to the XSI no namespace schema location attribute. So how we can just validate this XML schema or XML DTD file? So here I am talking about taking an example of the XML schema definition. So here is a validator. We are using the XML schema validator. We have a different type of validator. We can go online, and we just need to copy our XML file, XML content, and whatever we have written, the XSD file. Then we can just check the validity of those XML schema definition file against those XML file. So what we have is a validator. We have provided the XML instances to this validator and also provide the XSD file to it. That means XML schema definition. We have provided both XML file and related XSD file that have elements, attribute and data types. All these are represented in this file. If this is validated against this XSD, if this XML file representing this XSD, then this will be valid one. Otherwise, it will be not a valid XML file. So that means we have a XML document and we have a XML schema file. We have provided to the schema processor. If it is conformed to this schema, it will be a valid XML document. Otherwise, if it not according to this schema, it is not a valid XML file. That means it will produce some error messages. And these are some XML schema data types that we are using. So these we can just divide into two types: simple type and the complex types. So simple data types are these types: access string, boolean, decimal, date and time. And the complex type, maybe the complex type allows us to hold the multiple attributes. If there is a multiple attributes, then this is a complex type. It contains the additional sub elements and can be also left empty. The complex type may be empty elements, element that contains the text, or element that contains the other element, or element that contains the text as well as other element. All these should become in the complex type. So in this way, we can create our DTD and XML schema definition. The one difference in DTD and XML schema definition is the XML schema definition file is totally written in the XML that we have discussed. And the purpose of those DTD and XML schema file is to validate the XML document that we are just transporting from one application to another, to assure that this XML file is valid file that we are using or not. So we have apart from the XML document, we have either the XML schema definition file or XML DTD file. So currently we are using the XML schema definition to ensure the validity of an XML documents. So that we can just ensure that whatever the XML file we are receiving or we are just transporting is the valid one for removing this the programming errors. So that's it for today in the XML schema and XML data types related concepts. Thank you so much.